Hey everybody, just wanted to take a minute to work through the assignment Aviation Accident Statistics. This takes a look at U.S. general aviation accidents between the years 2000 and 2019. In our instruction section here, we want to start by calculating the accumulated fatalities each year. And then we want to complete the summary data table down here. And then we want to go ahead and create some graphs to visualize some of the data. So let's start off over here with our accumulated fatality data, right? So what we're looking to do is create a running total, so that way we can see, for example, uh, in the year 2008, how many fatalities have occurred since the year 2000. So let's go ahead and get started here. The first thing we need to do is we need to start off this data set by saying, okay, well, in the year 2000, how many fatalities were there? So we'll start off by pressing equals, and then we'll come over to where the total number of fatalities in the year 2000 are stored. We'll click on that cell D6, and we'll press enter. Now the next thing we want to do is, okay, we'll press equals. What we're going to do is we're going to take this value here in cell G6, and we're going to add that to the net number of fatalities that occurred in the next year, in this case, year 2001. So we'll add cell G6 to cell D7, and then press enter. So now we can see that in the year 2001, there have been 1,159 fatalities since the year 2000. So let's go ahead and click on cell G7, and you'll see the little box in the lower right-hand corner here. If we click and drag all the way down, you'll see it automatically updates the row numbers so that, for example, when we get down here to 2019, we can see that since the year 2000, there have been 9,728 fatalities in general aviation. All right, so there's our calculated accumulated fatalities section. Next thing we want to do is complete this summary data table. Now we're just looking to complete the highlighted cells. So let's start over here in the per year column, right? So we're looking to calculate a number of averages. So the average number of accidents per year. So if we come over here, we see accidents. All accidents are stored in column B. And we want to see, on average, how many accidents occurred every year. So we're going to go ahead and type equals. I'm going to type AVERAGE for average. And we're going to go ahead and open some parentheses there. And we're going to highlight that data that accounts for all of the aviation accidents that have occurred during that period. And we're going to go ahead and see that on average, there have been 1,479 accidents every year. And then we're going to go ahead and look at fatal accidents. So let's type equals AVERAGE because we're calculating an average. And we'll come over to where the accidents fatal data is stored in column C. And we'll highlight that stack of data there and close parentheses and press enter. And we can see that each year, there, on average, there have been 277 fatal accidents that have occurred. Now, we take a look at fatalities. We're just going to look at the total fatalities associated with each accident. And we won't take a look at the number of fatalities that have occurred within that total aboard aircraft. We'll just take a look at the total. So this includes people who unfortunately passed due to something that happened who were on the ground and passed due to the accident. So let's go ahead and type equals. And we'll go AVERAGE, average, open our parentheses, and we'll highlight the data in column D that accounts for the total number of fatalities each year. And we'll press enter, and we'll see that in an average year during that decade, we unfortunately saw 486 fatalities associated with general aviation. Next, we want to take a look at the average number of flight hours that we saw during that time period. So we'll press equals, another AVERAGE, and another average. And we're going to go ahead and highlight the data here in column F that shows the flight hours every year. And so in every year, we saw on average 22,793,135 flight hours. And so a lot of time spent in the air. Now, the next thing we want to see is that per flight hour, how many accidents did we see? How many fatal accidents did we see? How many fatalities did we see? So to do that, so we have a bit of sample code here. So to do that, we're going to go equals. And so we're going to take, for example, the average number of accidents which occurred per flight hour. We're going to take the number of accidents that occurred, average number of accidents that occurred every year. And we're going to go ahead and divide that by the average number of flight hours that we've seen per year. And now we want to make sure that we are always pulling from that cell J Oops, that cell J, I clicked away in the wrong spot and gave me some errors. That cell in column J looks like row 16. So let's go J and then $16, right? So those dollar signs lock that row and column and row numbers that we're always pulling from this cell. Now let's go ahead and press enter, and we see that there have been a very small number of accidents which have occurred in any given hour of flight time. And if we copy and paste those down, and click that little handle down there, we can see that in any given flight hour, we have very small numbers of fatal accidents, very small numbers of fatalities, and we would expect that, right? Because there have been a very large number of flight hours, 22 million of them, and in any given year, there have only been 1,400 accidents that have occurred, right? So that's a much smaller number. We'd expect to see that for any given flight hour, there are very small numbers of accidents, very small numbers of fatalities. Keeping in line with this idea that aviation is very safe, especially if you compare it to automobile accidents. All right, so next we want to take a look at our graphs. So we want to plot, first of all the number of accidents per year. We want to take a look at the total data, and we want to take a look at the fatality data. So let's go ahead and let's highlight those three columns, right? So we want to take a look at years on our x-axis, and we want to also plot the total accidents that occurred each of those years. And we want to also see a second line that includes the total number of fatal accidents that occurred during those years. So let's come to insert, and we'll go ahead over to charts, and we want scatter plots. I like the ones that are joined by lines. And we'll go ahead and click on that. And then we get a plot here showing in each year how many we see these accidents and accident statistics. Now let's go ahead up to quick layout, and I like this first one. So let's go ahead and give this chart some titles. Now on the x-axis, we're looking at years, and on the y-axis, we're looking at accidents. And for our title here, let's say accidents per year, all versus fatal. All right, so we see the blue line here, we see the number of accidents that have occurred every year. And in our red line here, we see the number of those accidents which have been unfortunately fatal. All right, so we'll stick that graph out of the way. Next, we want to see fatalities per year. So we want to take a look at the fatality data, total versus persons aboard, right? So the total number of fatalities that have occurred versus fatalities of people who were on board the aircraft. So let's go ahead and start by highlighting the x-axis data, and then we'll go ahead and hold down our control key and start highlighting the y-axis data. So our fatalities, our total, and the fatalities which unfortunately occurred aboard. And let's go ahead and insert and come over to chart. Let's grab a scatter plot here, and the lines, dots connected by lines is what I like. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. And there we go. And let's come up here to quick layout and click that first option there. Now again, on our x-axis, we have years, and on our y-axis, we have fatalities. And for our chart title here, let's go ahead and call this fatalities per year. And let's go ahead, total versus persons aboard. All right, so there's our chart there. And you can see there was one year where the total was significantly higher than the total for the persons aboard. All right, so let's go ahead and put that one down there. All right, now next we want to plot the accumulated fatalities. So we're going to plot those versus time. And for this one, it says we want to include a line of best fit and equation. All right, so let's go ahead and start off by highlighting our x-axis data, our years, and let's hold down the control key and then highlight the y-axis data, our accumulated fatalities. And we'll come over here, insert chart. Again, I like this one here, dots connected with lines, and click on that. And there we go, accumulated fatalities. Now, if we come over here to quick layout, right, because we want to add obviously our X and Y axis labels, but we also want to include a line of best fit and that equation. Now, to do this in the latest and greatest version of Microsoft Excel, we come down here and there's an option here. It includes our X and Y axis titles, and it also includes that line of best fit. And you'll see it includes an equation. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And for our x-axis, again, we are dealing with time, years. Let's go ahead and call it years. We could call it time in years, but for this, we'll just call it years. And on our y-axis, we'll call this fatalities. So these are accumulated fatalities each year since the year 2000. And you can see on average, there's our slope of our line of best fit. So on average, there have been 479 new fatalities every year. And that agrees pretty close to our average number of fatalities every year, that data there. That point we calculated just using a simple arithmetic average. So if we go ahead and we put that one out of the way too, and now we have a set of 3 graphs that summarizes and helps us visualize and understand this data a little bit better. Now, the last plot we're looking to create is a plot of the accumulated fatalities, but we want to see that on a logarithmic scale, right? So it's a bit of an extension exercise. So to do this, right, so we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we just did. We're going to highlight the years for our x-axis, and we're going to hold down the control key and highlight our accumulated fatalities. We're going to come up to insert, and we're going to come over here to charts, and we're going to click on the same plot here. Now this time what we want to do, right, is we want to see it on a logarithmic scale. Now with a logarithmic scale, we can get a sense of how much over what period of time do we see a doubling of the number of fatalities, right? It gives us a sense of how the rate of change is increasing or decreasing. You can see this is a fairly linear plot here. If anything, it kind of starts to flatten out a little bit. So that might give us a sense that the rate of change, the increase here is decreasing over time. But if we view that on a logarithmic scale, it can be a little bit more obvious and easier to really see how that data is changing. So let's go over here. I believe it's axis options, and let's go ahead and drop that down. And now you'll notice that down here under axis options, there's a little button here that says logarithmic scale. So let's go ahead and click that, and we'll stick with base 10. And you can see that, okay, wow, this is the way the accumulated fatalities are changing on a logarithmic scale, right? So this shows us how long it takes to double the amount of fatalities we see. And so you see that over time, we are indeed flattening out. Would suggest that over time, the number of fatalities, we see the rate of change of fatalities gets less and less and less, right? So that could indicate that aviation is becoming safer. You can interpret that. I'll leave the interpretation up to you. So we'll come down here. We still want our X and Y axis labels. And we can kind of shift around here with our formatting here, see if we like one better than the other. Now I'm just going to go ahead and stick with this first one we've been using, just to stick with it. Now there's only one line on this graph, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete the key there. For our x-axis, I'm just going to go ahead and title that consistently with what we've had before. We'll go ahead and call that years. And on our y-axis, we'll go ahead and call that fatalities. And go ahead and click away. And there we have it, a logarithmic plot of the number of fatalities that have occurred each year since that have occurred in total since the year 2000. So that helps us understand how the rate of new fatalities is changing. This type of plot has shown up a lot recently as we've taken a look at the COVID-19 pandemic. You see this plot a lot this type of graph quite frequently as we try to get a sense of how the pandemic may be spreading around the globe. So it's useful to have an understanding of how this works. So last but not least, we'll go ahead and stick that out of the way. So that way we have a nicely formatted spreadsheet here so we can go through and visualize the data easily. It might be kind of nice to just resize that And go ahead and put these two next to each other. All right, so we can just scroll through and take a look at our two plots here, our set of plots there. So that's the assignment here. Now you'll notice that that logarithmic plot is an extension. If you didn't quite follow how to do that, or if you're not up for creating that last plot, you can skip that one. But everything up to that point is required. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, upload it, and turn it in. So thank you very much. Let me know if you have any questions here.